Hey Grant, how are you?
Hey Dennis, I'm doing good. How are you?
All right. Alexa, volume 2. Just playing a little tunes in the background.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, man. I couldn't figure out how to do it before, but seems to work pretty well.
That's awesome.
Alexa said that was nice of you to say that she's awesome.
Have you asked Alexa to do like jokes and stuff?
Yeah, I have in the past. I haven't for a long time. Is it better now?
It's pretty funny, I think, but I haven't done it in a while either.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Hey Genevieve, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks.
Hi.
Oh, there you are. I got my video off as well. There we go.
How's everything with you?
It's
Everything's
good. It's like spring has finally come here. It's kind of nice.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I just got back from walking around the neighborhood.
That's great. Yeah, it's I don't know how cold it is outside, but I think it's supposed to get close to 80 today.
Oh, well, it was perfect when I went out earlier. I think it is supposed to get up to 80. I saw on the news, they said it should be perfect day for enjoying outside. So definitely get outside.
Yeah, I will. We live on a farm, so I'm outside a lot with the horses and various things going on, and it's better when it's 80 than when it's 30.
Oh my goodness. You have a farm? I just applied for an apprenticeship program for farming because I don't have any farm experience, but they said that I can actually do the apprenticeship with a farm that's by me that's been a business for over 3 years, but I believe that they pay you for my work. If you're willing, if you're interested, I would love to, if you have a farm or if you know anyone who's looking for help from an old woman.
Okay. Well, we're not really a farm in the sense that even though it has been in my wife's family since the 1600s, it's not been an active farm other than growing hay on a contract basis for probably 10 years or more since we kind of came here. Her dad was a cattle farmer, a rancher, and also grew tobacco. But at this stage, the only thing that goes on is I feed the horses.
Oh.
I'm the stable boy, So
Oh, that's fine. My kids, when they had camp, they would go to horse camp, and in order to ride, they had to do the stable. So that was part of it. If you didn't clean, you couldn't ride. So.
I'm not much of a rider. My wife is the rider, but I'm perfectly happy to deal with the stables and feed them and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Alexa, stop. Got a little background tunes going here this morning. So
Oh, that's okay. Alexa, I think, is listening to my conversation when I listen to your program in the morning, because my feed will come back with things related to topics that you've discussed in the in the class. So that's so funny that you have Alexa too.
yeah. My wife hates it. She thinks it's spying on her, and so she like whispers. It's really hysterical. And when she tries to get Alexa to do something, she does it with the ferocity of yelling at her kids. It's really funny. Quiet, Alexa, be quiet. You know, and she forgets to use the word Alexa, so it doesn't stop, and that just makes her madder. It's just really funny.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Alexa is so funny. There's this song that I like by Will Smith's daughter called Willow. And her group is called Anxiety. But it's so funny when I ask for the song, then Alexa's like, well, how are you feeling today? If you're anxious, this is so hilarious. So I can see your wife being angry.
Yeah, she just, you know, I had, you know, at one point there was probably an Alexa in almost every room just because I'm lazy, you know, with the TV, and it turns on the lights and all this kind of stuff, and it just drives her insane. So now Alexa only lives in my office and plays Marshall Tucker, so I'm happy. As far as it goes right now. Still turns my lights on and off in my TV room, so she doesn't know how that works. So I'm safe there. It's an automated process, so I don't have to ask Alexa to do it. So I get away with that. So okay, hey everybody, hey Kime, Amy, how's everyone doing?
Good morning, everybody. Good.
All right.
Morning, everyone.
Judy. All right, so we're going to get started with the second half of emotional quotient, or EQ, or emotional intelligence, however you want to look at it. One thing you may want to do, if you are using Google Alerts, make a Google alert for emotional intelligence, and you'll get a lot of current material, because this is currently, you know, highly, whatever the right word is, in the currently cool, right? I guess it'll change, but there is a lot. I see something almost every day on the topic. And a lot of little things that may end up being helpful. So anybody have any thoughts or want to comment about the EQ from yesterday, or literally anything else? Okay. All right. Well, let's jump in and let's see. Okay. And we'll.
Let's talk about fear, because fear is a reality. When you're an entrepreneur, fear is everywhere. I don't believe a great company can be built on fear, but I do believe that a great company, in fact, most great companies, maybe every great company, is built by people that felt fear and worked through it. So what do we feel fear about? So Harvard Business Review actually did a study where they identified 7 specific and repeated buckets of fear that are felt by entrepreneurs. Okay, so the basic one is financial insecurity. It's really risky doing a startup, right? You're not building your 401k. The second one is running out of money, right? The most common fear of entrepreneurs, we're not gonna outlast our cash on hand. You know, we're not gonna be able to make it. We've got 7 weeks, we're running towards a wall. The third one is imposter syndrome. It's the idea that I've tricked people into giving me money. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm gonna get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, you know, is gonna change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. You know, what is it gonna be like when I have to, you know, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed? You know, I can't even
I just want to take a second here to tell a quick story. I used to, for a bunch of reasons, go to Silicon Valley fairly often. And I met this guy who told me the following. And at the time I met with him, he was like executive vice president of a venture funded software company. And he said, you know, when I first came out here to Silicon Valley, because he was from Virginia, the line of reasoning was, you know, if you did a startup in the Washington, D.C. area and your startup failed, the message was, you'll never work in this town again. If you go to Boston, he said, not only did they say that, but they also had various criminal threats of how they're going to break your kneecaps or whatever if you failed. He then looked at me and said, I'm on my 15th startup. I've gone broke 4 times. And I'm now on my 15th startup. And, you know, out here, it's the exact opposite. He said, you could have a startup and you get sold for $1 billion. And no one will even talk to you if it's your first one.
Yeah, those haven't even been halfway.
Please mute everybody. So anyway, so he said, if you make $1 billion exit, you're not invited to anything because everyone figures you're just lucky. If you do it again or something similar, then you start to get some credibility. So on his 15th startup, he did in fact make $100 million and finally made it. But it took him about 25 years to get to that place. So this whole idea of you know, the risk of failing is actually celebrated in Silicon Valley and probably some other places as well. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of those kinds of things that she's talking about here are somewhat location specific or geographic specific. It doesn't, just because you failed does not mean that it wasn't, you know, all the positives were still positive. So I just wanted to make that point.
And I can't even stomach that feeling of imagining what that's going to be like. Then there's the team. You know, I didn't hire the right people. They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k, and I'm never going to get it back. And I got myself off the path, and see, now I'm spinning. Like, I am getting upset just talking about this stuff because I have been there, and, you know, I was that founder, and I mean, I had all of this. You know, it's real and it's no fun. But here's the thing: fear is not all bad. Right? I don't want to say that all fear is bad. Fear can be a great driver, right? If you're saying, I got to work hard, I need to figure out my sales channels before I run out of money, or you're going, I got to hit my goal this week because that's what I said I was going to do, like, that can be really, really motivating. It can drive progress and learning. But here's the thing. It's incredibly damaging when fear becomes physical. When you experience fear as a physical sensation, it stops you from being able to be effective. You're tense. You know, your heart rate goes up, like your breathing increases, like your blood vessels constrict, right? Your mental focus, you know, becomes insanely sharp. So this is the classic fight or flight response, you know, and that is driven by your amygdala. Your brain is going, what do I need to do to stay safe? So how do you think that is going to affect your ability to make good decisions? So the fact is, you cannot build a great team or a company or even have a good day when you're feeling like that. So when you become aware that you're in that feeling, you're having those physical fear sensations, just stop. Just slow everything down. Don't make any decisions. You know, you got to address that. You know, back to sort of the idea of being in the red, right? If you've got that level of fear, you're in the red. Go back to your presence tools. Go for a walk. Get outside. Do something physical. You can talk to your team. I personally find that when I say how I'm feeling, it like cuts it in half at least, if not more, right? It's a little bit like, it's not that the fear isn't real. The fear is real and it's rational, but it also reminds me a little bit of like the monster under the bed, you know, and like when mom and dad comes in and like looks under the bed and the monster's not there, like the kid feels better, right? So it's a little bit like that. When you share it, it kind of, fear hates the light of day, you know, so if you're feeling that way, you share it with someone else, it's gonna help you lessen it. If there's no one that you feel like you can really talk to about it, which sometimes happens to CEOs because you don't want to say to your team that you feel afraid because you feel like you need to build confidence. You can always also, by the way, I would encourage you to say it to them anyway, because you're going to be they're not going to be freaked out. Your team's going to be glad that you shared with them. So if you are a CEO and you are worried about showing your fear and vulnerabilities to your team, like, think about it. If you decide to do it, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. But you can also write it down. Sometimes just writing things down sucks the power out of them. And, coach yourself. Just ask yourself a simple question. What's the one thing that matters right now? And that can sort of help you get back on track. The point is not to stop feeling fear or to imagine that you're ever going to get to a point that you're not going to feel it, because you will not. By starting a company or deciding you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've put yourself in a place where you're going to feel more fear probably than even the average person. The point is to recognize when it shifts from working for you to working against you, and then to manage it. So I love to say, feel the fear and do it anyway. The most powerful leaders are those who acknowledge and embrace their fear and then turn it into an asset. Okay, so this is my favorite section. We're going to talk about flexible thinking. So you decided to work on this new thing and you had a plan. It was probably an amazing plan. But as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. The one thing we know for sure about your plan is that it is wrong. Your plan is wrong, your financial projections are wrong. Whether things turn out great for your company or blows up, it's not going to be what you thought. The fact is, what you know about your business is a tiny fraction of everything that there is to know. So if you know this much about your industry and your business and your competitors and your customers and your company, there's another 95% out there that you don't know. If everything was known, somebody would have already done what you're doing right now. So you made your plan with only 5% of the available information. Of course your plan is wrong. And that does not mean it is a bad plan or that you are not smart. The number one thing that highly intelligent people have in common is that they're wrong a lot. Jeff Bezos said that. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to get great at being wrong. You can call it growth mindset, you can call it learning mindset, but today we're calling it flexible thinking. So what are the elements of flexible thinking? So there's this cliche, strong opinions loosely held. People like to make fun of this on Twitter, but it's a cliche for a reason, and that's because it's really useful. So strong opinions means that you have a point of view and you're moving in a direction, right? You have to do that. If you're not moving in a direction and you haven't made a commitment, you're circling the drain. Loosely held means you're willing to abandon your strong opinions in the face of evidence to the contrary. You are taking a hypothesis-driven approach. You have beliefs about your business, you're moving in a direction, you test your beliefs, you talk to customers, you get data. And if the data shows your hypothesis was wrong, you don't go looking for better data. You say thank you, and you change your plan and you go test the next thing. This involves a total detachment from needing to be right. As an entrepreneur, you have to stand in the mirror practicing saying, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, over and over and over and over again until it's just as comfortable for you as saying hello. The core skill early in your company is learning. You got to also be comfortable in a state of just not knowing, which, by the way, I hate that, right? I'm a J, I want to make a decision. I just want to get there. I want to know. I hate not knowing. But that's really the definition of being a founder, is just being comfortable with the unknown. And then what is going to get you through this, and the key to success, is a commitment to asking continually better questions. The questions that you're trying to answer determine what you're going to be working on, and that is going to determine how quickly you're going to make progress in your business. So what are good questions? Good questions are sometimes called powerful questions because they generate thinking as opposed to generating a simple answer. They can't be answered yes or no, and they may have many different possible answers. A powerful question invites creative thinking and questioning of assumptions. So you might be sitting with your team and saying, who thinks we should start charging our beta customers? That's a question that you could ask. It's not a very powerful question because it's just asking for a yes or no and it's not prompting a discussion. A better question on that topic would be, what might happen if we start charging our customers? So now imagine the conversation you're going to have if you ask that second question. It's going to put you into a conversation that's going to invite creative thinking. Powerful questions are universal. So you can just have this toolkit of questions and you can just bring them out with you. They apply to lots of situations. When you get really good at flexible thinking, these questions will become second nature to you. You know, like, what's working, right? I love to ask like positive questions rather than negative questions. When you focus on what's not working, it takes your brain into a negative place. But if you ask what's working, you know, one thing to say is what's working and how can we do more of it, right? And that takes you into a positive generative place. Another one that I love to ask is what's at stake here? Because when you name the stakes, you know, behind a decision, it can tell you, you know, how essential is this? And if you're worrying about something where the stakes actually aren't that big, asking what's at stake here can cause you to let that question go and focus somewhere else. So just like we looked at the profile of the person who isn't self-aware and we thought about like how bad it would be to work for that person or with that person, here's another frame on that, which is thinking about being in a fixed thinking mindset or a judgmental mindset versus a flexible thinking mindset. And I want to like, again, just point out that these are states of being. They're not kind of absolutes. So we all spend time over here in fixed and we all spend time over here in flexible. So fixed people are feedback avoiders. They've got their story. So you may have been in a meeting or seen someone in a meeting when they're pitching or they're presenting, and they go into it like a fight. What they're trying to do is convince you that their point of view is right. So if someone asks a question, the purpose of answering the question is to knock down the assumptions, right? Whereas if you go into a meeting with a different kind of flexible attitude and someone asks you a question, where you can go is curiosity. Like, oh, what a great question. I hadn't thought about that before. Let me respond and kind of engage with you on the question that you've just asked. It's just a completely different approach. Where do you think fear puts you? Fear puts you over there. Ego, needing to be right, puts you over there. You know, fatigue, being triggered, puts you over there, right? So we all get over there and we need to work to get back over here. And how do you think it affects the rest of your team? It is not surprising that flexible thinkers are much more effective leaders. Flexible thinkers build loyalty, build trust, they're able to show humility, and they engender cooperation and a greater taking of risk by everyone on their team because they create a safe space for that to happen. So we're never going to be there 100%, but the more time we can spend in flexible thinking than fixed thinking, the better everything is going to be. So let's talk about feedback. Who loves to get feedback? I love that. A lot of people that love to get feedback. Unfortunately, feedback has picked a pretty bad rap. If you're getting feedback, a lot of people think it's because you did something wrong. You're broken and I have to fix you by giving you some feedback that's going to make you better. So like in the context of being an entrepreneur and actually just like in the context of life, like we need to flip this on its head. Feedback is a positive. Feedback is learning. Feedback is growth. So when you're getting feedback, you don't have to agree with everything that's being said. But flexible thinkers, like we just saw, are open to feedback and look for the learning opportunity in it. So, you know, one of the reasons why we don't love feedback is because it feels like evaluation, but actually evaluation is only one of the three kinds of feedback. And it might be actually the least important, especially in this context. So there are three kinds of feedback, and they're appreciation, evaluation, and then coaching. So let's talk about appreciation first. Appreciation is feedback, right? And you should just hand it out. Just give it out like candy. In fact, give it out more than candy. It's better for you than candy. So, you know, when people are doing things around you, you know, that are helpful, like notice them, right? Just show people that you notice them and care. I'm not talking about like the culture of giving everyone a trophy. I'm just talking about the culture of we're all working really hard. Let's take a minute and just thank each other and acknowledge, right? That feels really good. It's not evaluative. It's just saying thank you. You should also be doing evaluation on a regular basis with your team. You know, people should have a defined job description and, you know, goals that they need to meet. And you're going to want to check in every once in a while, 3 months or 6 months against those goals and kind of track and see how people are doing. But what I'm talking about now is like the kind of feedback that sort of happens on a daily basis that's just meant for growth. It's not evaluative and it's not pure appreciation, it's coaching and growth feedback. So how do you become great at getting and giving feedback? So one of the ways is you ask for it, right? The best kind of feedback is the kind of feedback that you asked for. What did I do well in that meeting that we just got out of? Like what didn't go so well? Ask someone for feedback right in the moment and you know, then you'll be able to incorporate it right away. But make sure you're ready. So if you're feeling triggered or you're feeling a little upset or off, not a great time to get feedback. When you're getting feedback, practice active listening. So you're not going to argue, you're not going to speak. Don't question the content, question for understanding. So remember that it's hard to give feedback. So like have some empathy for the person who you've asked for the feedback, because that's a difficult place for them to be. And remember also, this is an exchange. So it's not like you've asked me for feedback, I'm telling and you're listening. We're having a conversation. Then you might check for understanding. So what I'm hearing you say is that you didn't think that I handled the market sizing question well, that you thought that my answer sounded defensive, right? You want to check and make sure that what the other person said is the same as what you heard. Once you're pretty sure you're clear on what the feedback was, say thank you, accept it, and go away. You can decide later what you're going to do about it and how you're going to address it. And you know, it may take a while for it to sink in. And then on the flip side, when you're giving feedback, before you give it, make sure the person that you're going to give it to actually wants it. You know, I noticed something in there I'd like to share with you. Is this a good time for us to talk about that? Right? And when you're giving someone feedback, you don't want to, you want to share your observations as opposed to your judgment. Right? So you want to really stay with, this is what I saw, this is what I observed, this is what I noticed. It's up to the person getting the feedback to make the interpretation. You don't want the feedback to come across as, you should be more like this, you should be more like that. You just want to share what you observed and let them learn from it. So if you've got trouble with feedback, practice. Like, I think it's great to practice on things that are not very loaded. You know, ask for feedback on, you know, how your presentation skills were, or you know, how your meeting agenda was, or something that's kind of not very deep and personal. If there's certain people you don't want to get feedback from because they just trigger you, that is totally fine. If there are certain topics that are off the table, that is also totally fine. You know, you should work to expand on it. Like, again, back to that whole idea of like expanding the boxes and reducing your blind spot. Like, the more feedback you get, the smaller your blind spot's going to get. Some people like to have mantras. Like, I know someone who actually repeats in his head before he gets feedback, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, so that he can kind of like calm himself down so that he can hear what's being said. Whatever is your trick for managing it, you know, just look for what's true, the 10% that's true. And if you don't like the rest, you don't have to take it. You know, the truth is that high-performing entrepreneurs, teams, and cultures are all feedback seekers. So especially if you're leading a teams, the first step is for you to model asking for feedback and then also responding to feedback in a positive and a thankful way. We're going to talk about coaching. So like, we used to think that this was a coach, right? When we thought of the word coach, we thought about sports. And now we think that this is a coach. Like, a coach is Wendy Rhodes in Billions, like designed to get the top performance out of the traders. But we're not talking about either of those kind of coaches today. Today, we're talking about growth coaching. So like, what is coaching exactly? Coaching is focused on questions and focused on the future. It is definitely not therapy. Okay, we're not going to be doing therapy with the people that we work with or even our family members. Therapy is backward looking and helps shed light on problems and patterns and what the causes may have been in the past. It's also not consulting, which is about evaluating problems and recommending solutions. And it's not really mentoring. Mentoring is about, you know, someone who has more experience, like sharing their experience, you know, to help someone who's less experienced. by sharing wisdom. So coaching is future focused and question based. So if you're a manager, you're leading a team at a startup, you definitely need to spend some time over here, but you want to spend as much time as possible over here, because that is how you're going to help your team get on a steep growth curve so that the company can grow faster. The more effective your team becomes at solving problems by themselves, as opposed to going to you for the solution, the better you're all going to be. If you're an entrepreneur, you get very used to, when you're a solo entrepreneur, kind of doing everything yourselves and having all the answers. And it's really, really hard to, when you have a team, not to just treat them as an extension of yourself that's going to enable you to be more efficient by taking things off your to-do list and putting it on theirs. That's not going to get the best kind of mileage and results out of your team. And frankly, it's not going to make them feel very happy and fulfilled. So if you can get out of that mindset and have them own their own workflow and their own decision making, and empower them by being a coach as opposed to an instructor and a list giver and an order giver, your team's going to be so much more happy. The other thing is, we all need to grow. Everyone wants to grow. And research shows that sustainable growth on a personal level has to be internally generated. So if you want to be an effective coach for your team, you have to kind of unlearn that skill of just telling people what to do, and get into a position where you can really lean back and let them find solutions.
I just want to take one second here, just to give you some examples, I guess, of growth that maybe aren't as evident as you might expect. And this may sound crazy, but one of the elements that I like to talk about in growth is take a look at the Beatles, the musical group, the Beatles. When I was really little, that was "I Want to Hold Your Hand," I think, and there was one other song that was really big, but they were relatively simple songs, at least from my memory. But as time went on, from roughly then, which was roughly 1964-ish, 5-ish, something like that, until they kind of broke up, they kept coming out with hits, just kind of one right after the other for quite a few years. And whether you like the music or not, it's really not that relevant to me. What's relevant is they never stopped growing. They never stopped innovating. You may not have liked it from a personal musical taste, but almost from a business perspective, they continued to evolve and develop. And even to this day, at least in the case of Paul McCartney, he has continued to grow and develop and put new stuff out. And I don't know how old he is now, 75 maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but he's still putting stuff out, and he collaborates with other artists, and this just constant, kind of growth. And I think other examples of that are, somebody like the New England Patriots, the football team. Again, regardless whether you are a fan or whatever, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, it's a sustained innovation and growth over a pretty long period of time that gives you an idea of what this whole idea is of continuing to evolve and develop. And what she's talking about at this section is how to look at your employees or potential employees or even your partners. Are you a coach or are you an instructor? Are you just literally handing them step by step what to do? Or are you in fact kind of identifying the area of the possible and giving them the freedom to kind of figure that out? So I wanted to plant the seed about this continuous growth thing. It manifests itself outside of business all the time as well. It's the same process. It's just if your metric is how much money you're making or whatever, then that's that's different. I understand, but this concept of creating a team or a group or even yourself able to continually grow and develop is really a worthwhile place to be.
So coaching is a relationship between any two people, in which the coach supports the coachee to make a meaningful change. It's future looking, it's aspirational, and most importantly, it is owned and directed by the person who is receiving the coaching. Here's a quick methodology that anyone can use to coach someone else on a specific issue. We're just gonna call this spot coaching, because this could just be a 10-minute conversation. So Who can you coach? Anyone. You can coach your child, you can coach your parent, you can coach your team members, you can coach your employees, you can coach anyone who asks, and exactly 0 people that don't ask you, right? So if the person you want to coach who you think needs coaching doesn't buy into it, non-starter. So what's a coachable issue? So like anything for this purpose, sort of anything where personal growth and work kind of intersect. So this could be career development, it could be time management, it could be stress, work relationships, leadership style. It doesn't have to be like a big thing to be a coachable issue. Like a great coachable issue that comes up all the time is like, I'm constantly late to meetings. What can I do about that? Or, I want to get to inbox 0 is a coachable issue. So anything can be the way into a coachable issue. So you can have a coachable conversation in like 10 minutes. Like this could be 7 questions. So a great starting point is what's on your mind. Then I love to ask the question, and what else? Because usually the first thing someone says isn't actually the issue. You can keep digging by saying, what's the real challenge for you? So it's kind of like you're going level deeper and a level deeper and a level deeper. Asking what you want, like this might feel obvious.
Again, sorry to interrupt, but this was something that I was taught really early in my business career, in this kind of situation where you're trying to figure out what really is the issue, what's really the problem. And the way I was taught was to repeat back to the person what they responded. So something like, I understand you're upset about this. In addition to that, is there anything else in the back of your mind that you would like to share? And 90% of the time, that second thing is the real issue. The first thing they say is what they think you want to hear. And this is particularly true in a sales process when you're so-called dealing with objections, or I call them questions. But a really effective technique is to repeat back what they said, hopefully accurately, and then ask them if in addition to that, is there anything else that they're thinking about or that's on their mind? And that's a really effective way. It isn't guaranteed, but it is a way to get to the real issue that you're dealing with.
Obvious, but sometimes like by asking this question, you can help people discover what they really want, which they might not even be aware of. So they might be looking at a problem from the outside and not really know where they're even coming from until they hear you ask that question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? This is helping people understand their choices and how they value different things. So you're not telling them what choice to make. You are helping them uncover the unconscious decisions when they're choosing one thing over another. And then the final question is great because you're asking for feedback. When you ask someone what was most useful to you, you're saying, what did I do that helped you? Like, help me be better at doing this in the future. So, we all feel pressure to get stuff done and to have the answer. So it's like really tempting to jump in with advice and solutions or like share your own experience. If you really want to coach someone, don't do that, okay? I've done this so many times. I've made this mistake, right? I'll come in because I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. I've been there, and you want to like share and connect. You'll see the person's eyes, it's like the curtains came down, right? Because now you're not talking about them and helping them do the work. You're sharing about yourself. You'll be just amazed at how much more powerful an experience this is if you can stay out of sharing your own experience and just really lean back instead of leaning forward. Coaching is not just a process like we just went through. It's also just a way of being. There's actually a great book called The Coaching Mindset, which talks about this, and it's about kind of bringing a coaching perspective to everything that you do. So the essence of being a coach starts with presence, right? It all comes back to presence. So like literally just being there fully present and really listening. Then, having an empathic stance. Like, do you hold everyone that you work with and the person that you're speaking with in unconditional positive regard? Are you really listening? Are you listening to either fix, solve, or critique? Emotional engagement. Like, is your level of emotional engagement appropriate? Like, if somebody tells you something that is deeply upsetting, you should be connecting with what they're feeling, right? You're not detached, you're engaged. Boundary awareness, so understanding like what is theirs to fix versus yours to fix, right? And really kind of drawing a clear boundary so that you're not solving someone else's problem. And finally, like the courage to challenge. When someone says something that doesn't ring true or where you feel like they're not being honest with themselves, having the courage to call time out and say, that doesn't sound quite right, can be really, really powerful. Sometimes people need that. They need you to challenge them. So if there's one thing to take away from this idea of coaching, it's moving away from fix, tell, solve. And you need to spend some time there, right? We're all trying to move fast, but the more you can stay and ask, listen, reflect, like the better everything is going to be for you and your team. And when we kind of go up back to the level of sort of overall emotional intelligence, your job as an entrepreneur and as a leader is not to have answers. Your job is to have questions. And your legacy, it might not be creating the next unicorn company. Like for most of us, like that's not going to happen. But what will definitely happen is that you are going to have an impact on everyone you work with and on everyone around you. And so developing your EQ will help ensure that that impact is a positive one. Thank you.
Okay, so on this section here, there's summaries for each one of these videos. So if you click on that, it'll recap what you just saw. And then at the bottom is all these worksheets that we've talked about, which you're certainly welcome to do. Since they fixed it now, it doesn't go anywhere except into a PDF that you can print out. But there's a lot of stuff here, and this is actually, I think, one of the most important things that we talk about, the ability to really be involved yet able to coach versus instruct, is really important. And many of you come from a management background in your previous life, so you probably already are pretty good at being a coach and working with different kinds of people. But some of you have been not so much involved with that, maybe more of a solo entrepreneur or whatever. So this sort of exposure, this sort of training, really is an important piece of what you do going forward. Okay, so that's that. Any comments, reactions that anyone wants to chat about? Judy, what do you think?
I was very impressed with what she had to say, and I thought a lot of that, particularly the latter part, that could really transfer over into your personal life very well as well.
Yeah.
The way to communicate better and on a deeper level to make sure you're really getting to the root of the issue and supporting your people.
Yeah. In addition to that, is there anything else that you got out of the presentation?
The fear portion struck me especially. I think that portion will be the most beneficial to me because the imposter syndrome, the fear of, being on your own and not being with your corporation and building your 401k and things of that. And to hear that she had dealt with that. And then also what you said about Silicon Valley, with what's on the East Coast is very different than expectations on the West Coast. I just found that interesting, that what their comfort level is and what they're willing to, I guess how they're willing to view things as far as the entrepreneurial spirit of things.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really good. Anyone else want to comment? Khan, you've got a management background. Talk to me.
Yeah, unfortunately I do, but and I don't do quite as much of it now as I used to. When I was in the corporate world, I did. I reflected on my drive home and every evening about the day, what I could have done better and how I could interact and engage with my team and my staff. Now it's I need to reflect more on those core thoughts and processes and a lot of things that she spoke about with my family, because now they are the supporting cast and they are my to some degree co-workers, if you will. So and I don't give them quite the attention in the process just because I guess I just view it different. But it's the same basic principle. Yeah, we need to find out what's making them feel inadequate, not as important, whatever the case may be, and engaged into what I'm trying to accomplish here for all of us as well. So, and sometimes I get focused on what I'm doing and not into their needs. So that's a big part of what I need to concentrate and focus on. So.
Okay. Fantastic. I'm going to play, one of the themes that they talk about in entrepreneurship all the time is this idea of your 401k and your security and all your comfort that you have, in the corporate, and how you're kind of giving that away when you go into being an entrepreneur. So this is a 2-minute video from Simon Sinek that just came out about a week ago. And I think you'll find it extremely appropriate. So let's just take a quick look at that.
Verbo.
Oh, man. Michael, they're your cousins.
A phenomenon that has happened, again, I blame the past 30, 40 years, where people would give their entire lives to a company and then get the proverbial gold watch. There's an entire generation that when we talk about the gold watch, they don't know what we're talking about because it just doesn't exist anymore. And if you think about it, and again, because of the commonality, the frequency of the use of layoffs as a tool, right? We all, for those who saw the Better.com video, I don't know if you saw it, it was embarrassing. The CEO made a video that he played to employees that over Zoom.
So what, he fired 900 people?
900 people with a video saying, if you're unlucky enough to be seeing this video, effective immediately.
Sorry about that. I don't know what did that.
You're terminated
effective immediately, 2 weeks before Christmas. And when the CFO was interviewed about it, he said, well, we need to, and I love this terminology, we need to fortress the balance sheet. This is why we should not let CFOs talk to the public.
Oh, Pearlie. Our CFO is a wonderful man. Give it up for Pearlie.
Notice Simon's not clapping.
We love you, man.
It's very rare. It must be great here because CFOs never get that kind of applause. It's really wonderful. But the point is what he amplified is that if you have your own business, if you're a small business owner, you're going to go out of business months before. No small business owner goes to work one day thinking everything's fine, then the next day there's nothing. Right. It just doesn't exist. But we now live in a society where having a stable job with benefits could end tomorrow. Effective immediately is what they were told. Not a meritocracy, no fault of my own, the company's doing well. And so if you think about how twisted that is, that a quote-unquote stable job is actually not stable at all, and that stress sits with every single employee. You said we need to have a meeting, and fear is the first reaction, says something not necessarily about the company, but it says something about business and the way business and corporate America is viewed.
You ever wondered what actors and actresses do when they have to get in shape really fast for a movie?
Okay, so that's kind of enough. You kind of get the point there. Do everything right, have your benefits and everything, and we no longer need you. Thank you. And maybe not even a thank you. So that's the reality of today's world. It's not the same when you were working in your corporate job where you really felt like you did certain things for the organization would help you, respond accordingly. So I thought that was pretty appropriate kind of comment. Any reaction to that? Okay. Well, that's all I have for today. Hopefully this stuff is helping you, grow and think about stuff maybe a little bit differently. But I think also to realize that the world is in fact changing in many ways, and a lot of your assumptions need to be tested. They may no longer be what you thought they were. And particularly in the case of entrepreneurship, there's often a sense of that you're doing something so radical and jumping off the diving board, into space, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Actually, that's not true. You're actually doing something that you can have some degree of control. And hopefully you've got product market fit so that you won't go broke. But the idea is not as crazy as it may have seemed even 10 years ago, 5 years ago. When companies start letting people go impersonally and coldly, 900 people 2 weeks before Christmas in a company that reported record earnings, just kind of put all that in context. This was not a failing company. It's really an eye opener for me. And I was glad that Simon spoke up on that. He's a good person to put on your Google alerts because he tends to throw stuff out there, little short things like this, 2 minutes long or whatever. Find it helpful to get his perspective on this stuff. So with that, unless anybody has anything they want to talk about, one thing I would like to ask, if anybody here has had experience selling on Etsy, if you just shoot me an email, just generally what you think of it, pros and cons, I'd like to know kind of what your thoughts are if you've done that. And they just announced that they increased their seller fees from 5% to 6.5%. I think about a week or so ago. And my understanding it's the 4th or 5th increase in that fee in the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm just curious what people think about that and what reaction you have toward it. All right. Well, thank you all very much. And hopefully some of you will be at the Flavors of Carolina show. I'm going to try to get there Monday. So hopefully I can see you there if you're there. All right. Bye, everybody.
Everybody.